Hey guys, welcome to another one. We are currently driving in some inclement weather, but I wanted to throw this video together to talk about what it's like to daily drive something like this. I don't think I've ever addressed this car. I feel like, well, you know, I've never really addressed the daily drivability of something like this. You know, it's not, you know, over the top. I haven't cracked into the engine, and certainly it's not in any upgraded turbo. However, you know, it's got all the full bolt-ons, all the, you know, anything of that. So it has the bolt-ons, everything you need. With this type of performance, you are still able to maintain that, really the reliability that you would need. And that train is stopped. I wonder if that's going to be an issue because we're about to cross the train track, so we will see. But you guys, a lot of people kind of are worried. They're like, and I see these comments, I don't understand these comments, and a lot of people are so concerned about like even going stage 1 and daily driving it. They're like, well, you know, I don't want to turn my car into a full, you know, blown race car. And I don't understand those. I mean, I get it if you've never tuned a car, you know, you've never really touched the ECU, and really if you've never even messed with any bolt-ons, maybe I understand where you're coming from. I can tell you with a lot of confidence that owning this car is really, really inexpensive for the most part. I mean, there's obviously some maintenance that you have to take care of, and I'll go through those kind of intervals and so on shortly, but these are really, really inexpensive cars to own, and on top of that, they're extremely reliable as long as you just do the stage 2. You don't need the upgraded turbo, although, you know, it's certainly a fun thing to do. You don't need it. So I guess that should cover at least that front. So I know a lot of people think, you know, oh, if I go even just stage 1, I'm gonna you know, compromise the drivability of my car, and that's not true. I mean, as long as you have all the supporting mods and you're on top of your maintenance, you should be good. So I guess on the subject of maintenance, and just so you guys know, this car is at 55,000 miles. This is kind of my early disclaimer. It's been so unbelievably reliable for me, and yeah, 55,000 miles, you know, and it's been great. You know, it feels like a new car still. I can't say the same for my GTI. That could have been just because of how it was maintained. I missed a couple steps here and there, and yeah, we'll kind of address some of those in this video now. So the first thing that I really, really recommend, if you guys even go stage 1, low torque, doesn't matter whatever tune you run, this should be for anybody. If you decide to go stage 1 in any capacity, I highly, highly recommend, sometimes there's a cop there, but I'm feeling a little mischievous. Oh man. See, that's the one thing that the Mark 8 has over me, is the well, that guy's mad cool. Is that really trick differential? Such a cool feature in the Mark 8, and you can actually drift them. This thing doesn't have it. As Haldex, and Haldex is fine. It does a great job, but you know, I digress. Anyway, so as I was mentioning, one of the things that you really want to tend to if you do decide to go stage 1 is your spark plugs. Every 10,000 is kind of what I do. You can, I guess, roll the dice and maybe do every 15. I'm not a believer in kind of waiting. I want to, you know, if I need to do spark plugs, I'll do spark plugs. So I do it every 10,000 miles, and so far, no issues. What'll happen is if you don't do it in time, I don't know necessarily the material that, I guess the diode or something, the tip of the spark plug ends up snapping off, and this is kind of a common issue if you have kind of weathered and sort of older spark plugs, and older as in anything that's kind of north of 10,000 miles, in my opinion, is old. Do your spark plug, stay on top of that. You won't have any dramatic issues. I did end up doing my coil pack. I didn't really think I had to, but I did it before my track day anyway, just to make sure I was in good shape, and that was right around 50,000 miles when I ended up doing my coil pack. So it's up to you guys if you want to, you know, do that before. It should be good until I think 70 to 100,000 miles for a coil pack, but I ended up doing just a little bit early just to prepare for a track day. You know, so that's just my own opinion. I don't think that's necessarily a make or break. You won't, you know, suffer any failures or any engines going off, you know, or going kaboom if you don't, you know, tend to your coil pack. But it's always good to kind of stay on top of your ignition. The next thing, if you, of course, you know, Golf R, so on, you know, this goes for GTIs. I know some of you guys are watching, you're wondering, oh, is this just a Golf R video? No, everything, you know, the spark plugs applies to GTIs, anything MQB, maybe not RS3, I don't know much about those yet, but still, it's just for this car. So keep that in mind. But on the subject of Golf R, Haldex, doing your Haldex fluid swap. I do mine every 30,000 miles. I'm pretty sure that's the recommended. So I flush it, I clean out the filter, and by me, I mean whatever shop I send this thing to. I'm coming up on 60,000 miles of this car, so of course I'm soon to be at that service. I didn't notice a day and night difference when I serviced it. It's one of those kind of intermittent things, but you still want to get it done, because if your Haldex pump fails, you're out of a lot of money, especially if you're out of warranty, which I assume many of you guys maybe could be. So just keep that in mind. It's something to be a little bit mindful of. On top of that, every 40,000 is your DSG service. I did mine at 48,000. I heard some reports of the 7-speed being good up to 70,000 miles. However, it's the only DSG I've ever come across that, you know, this DQ381 that allows it to go that high, and I don't know. My sources are coming from Shop Deutsche Auto Parts, which is a very reliable source. However, I still don't understand how a DSG could last that long on the same fluid, especially the fact that it was factory fluid, and I do, you know, launches, and I bang gears, so bang gears, click paddles, whatever, you know what I mean. So I ended up doing that service, and I can't complain. It was actually a day and night difference. I actually ended up also resetting my DSG. I've only reset it twice, so that was really that, and I'm glad I went to kind of all that, all those kind of steps, because in the, you know, the back of my mind, this thing is been very reliable because I've been on top of my servicing. Obviously, oil changes, I do oil changes every 5,000 miles, and before track days I always do another oil change, and after track days another oil change. So I am doing constant oil changes. That's the one thing, is the beating heart of this car is of course the engine. I want to make sure I'm on top of my oil changes. Some of the things that I am a little concerned of, and some of this just could be because of the tune, and it's every tune does this, guys. No one target IE, but turbos is probably the biggest weak point of this car. Being a 2019 Golf R, even some of the, you know, the ones prior to it suffered turbo issues, and not necessarily the worst turbo issues, but still it's something to be a little bit mindful of. You know, keep an eye on your bearings, see what kind of play you have. It's easy to check, it really is. So staying on top of your your turbo is huge, and really that's it. You know, as long as you do that, it's totally fine. Again, you could perhaps send your turbo off to get it rebuilt. You don't necessarily need to go for a more powerful iteration of what you had before. If you go for the same, you just swap out a turbo. FCP Euro sells them for, I think, like 1,200 bucks, which is a pretty penny. But again, if your turbo goes kaboom, your engine may go kaboom, and that's a lot of money that you just, you know, obviously just lost. And that kind of all ties in really nicely with spark plugs too. Again, if you don't do your spark plugs, the chance of it breaking off and going into your engine and completely destroying your engine, which again happened to my GTI, not under my ownership fortunately, but still I feel extremely bad for the new owner, because he only had it for 10,000 miles until it blew up. So do your spark plugs. Oh my god, I cannot emphasize that enough. It seems like an annoying, costly thing, but overall this is the cheapest performance you can still get, even to that, you know, to that note. So let's see, what else? Not too much. One thing I noticed, and this is, I don't know if I'm ready for it yet. My water pump seems pretty good. I do think I have a small coolant leak, a very, very small one, but I have tons of coolant at home, so I'm always measuring or always checking the levels. What happens is when it gets really hot and my coolant, you know, reservoir isn't filled, not to the max, but not necessarily to the max, but it's when it's kind of just, you know, a little bit lower than the kind of the top of the line, or at least not level with it. I like to kind of keep it super full, not all the way to the top, but enough for it to, because there is an overfill and overflow or whatever, so it doesn't, you know, let you overfill it by any means. But occasionally what will happen is if it's not filled all the way and I'm driving this thing hard and trying to get crackles and revving it high, you know, it's gonna start pissing out coolant. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But aside from that, I took this car, and again at 55,000 miles, not too many miles, but I took this thing on about a 200-mile trip on Saturday this weekend, and I came home, I got really bored. I was, you know, figured I should do a couple launch controls. I did one, but I did a launch control, and this thing ran a 3.5 0 to 60. Really impressive. Again, it doesn't mean much, you know. I went on a trip, you know, whatever, did a quick rip, and I don't know what that's supposed to necessarily prove, but at the same time, this car is so unbelievably reliable. And one of the things I like about this car a lot, it's a, you know, and a lot of people think it's either really expensive for their budget or really cheap. I think it's a perfect, you know, middle ground, you know, for necessarily, you know, a medium budget, whatever. And kind of what I'm trying to get at is a lot of people think, you know, oh, I should buy a 340, get all these, you know, these, or M5, or, you know, I don't know why I'm going after BMW, but like even Audis, you know, a lot of these Audi engines, you know, I want to make this thing the fastest car ever, and those cars are quicker than this car, there's no doubt in my mind. However, at the same time, your back-to-back pulls, you know, if you decide to go even more power, blah, 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 if you blow up one of those motors, I'm going to almost assure you that it's going to be way more expensive to fix one of those engines as opposed, or sorry, replace one of those engines as opposed to this engine. This engine, it's in everything. The Golf R is a little bit tweaked, and I don't necessarily know, I don't want to say the wrong thing in the video, but I know this thing is a little slightly different version from the GTI A3, but it is a slightly different engine. Needless to say, you know, there's not too many differences. So if something breaks with the DSG or this engine, is so, it's in every possible car, especially around this, you know, era, that it's not a very expensive replacement. You know, you're not out tens of thousands, you're out maybe a couple thousand, and then maybe to put it in, if you pay a really good shop to do it, you're probably out 10 grand, which, you know, that's a lot of money, but at the same time, that versus a, you know, a BMW or an Audi engine, like, I don't know, I wouldn't be the saddest person ever if this engine does go kaboom, you know. And I had some concerns last year with a very silly issue. Is kind of a small oil leak related to my dipstick and my oil pan, and it ended up getting resolved. And I thought I lost my motor, and at the same time I was kind of freaking out, but at the same time I knew I wasn't going to be out a ton of money. Definitely a chunk of change, and wouldn't be happy about it, but at the same time I'd be happier if it was this car and not something more expensive. A lot of people overlook that, and I don't get that. I think really you can't go wrong with this car. You don't, you know, you want to look more rich, or you want to show off, sure, whatever. Maybe that justifies your bigger expense, but I don't care. I don't care what people think about me. I don't know if that was obvious enough just from my channel, but I love these cars. These cars are these are the best freaking cars. They're so compact, they're so small, they're fun to toss around a track. You know, it's not the fastest car, and it certainly isn't, you know, the most track worthy. It's maybe not the quickest, but it doesn't compromise. It does everything so well, and you know, it's just, I don't know, it's a well-rounded vehicle, and that's why I like these things so much. So I guess to answer anyone who's, you know, anyone's question, you know, if you're worried about, you know, running this car, you know, on a stage 2, stage 1 tune, whatever it may be, I tell you right now, that guy must not be having a great day. It's been raining for a little bit now, and he's stuck in it, so to each his own. But again, I really want to reiterate that this car, I drive this car. I really do. I get my money's worth, no doubt. It is such an awesome car, but the thing is, it still drives so great. There's no issues that I could really, you know, rattle off the top of my head. It's just, you know, it's a freaking great car. I mean, this car sees red line, you know, several times a day, and I drive this thing so unbelievably hard, and I don't want to jinx it, but you know what I mean. It's just one of those really awesome, well-rounded cars. And for anyone out there who wants to get into affordable high performance, look no further. This is it. A GTI is also a great option too. I'm not saying one is better than the other. You know, I've done so many goddamn launches in this car, and it still is so unbelievably fast. There's no sluggish, you know, I don't do back-to-back launches. I do, you know, maybe I used to do like a launch a week, and I'd maybe launch it once or twice a month, but it's a fair amount, you know, and it's amazing how much beating this car can take. It's truly a testament to Volkswagen engineering. So yeah, this was supposed to be obviously a video to cover, you know, should you tune your car, blah, blah, blah. And the answer is yes, absolutely. Just do it. Stage 3, I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but stage 2, like, what more do you need? That's fast. That's not slow. I mean, I don't know. When I had the GTI, it was like, it took a year or two until I was like, all right, I'm starting looking at other options. And I'm so glad I went with this Golf R. The Mark 8's a great car. If you guys want to know Mark 8 or Mark 7.5, I don't know what to tell you. I've never driven the Mark 8. I think the Mark 8's a better car, but for the price right now, not so much. I think if you get a Mark 7.5, you're chilling. You're in a really, really sweet rig. Especially if you've driven nothing like that before, nothing like this, sorry, then it's gonna feel like a totally new experience. You know, this all-wheel drive is very smart. I mean, it's raining out, not that I'm doing anything, you know, crazy, but if I go to, let's just say 0, you know, kind of from a dig, I'm not gonna launch it, but look at this. I'm not even gonna get traction light. Oh my God. I could just do those for days, and that's the thing, the car will take it as long as my oil temperatures remain the same, which 216, that's a pretty healthy temperature. You know, yeah, again, I picked a really funny day to shoot this video, but I wanted to, again, cover this daily drivability. Should you tune your car? Should you, you know, go to this type of level of performance? And yes, the answer is yes, 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 yes. Stay on top of your maintenance. You know, I don't know what the yearly cost is of this car. That's not the whole point of this channel. There are channels that cover that. I don't care about the numbers. You guys know it's so variable. If you do your stuff, you know, your service yourself, which I do about half the service. I don't know how to, you know, bleed brakes. I don't know how to do a Haldex service, and I don't know how to do a DSG service. However, I do all my oil changes, I do my spark plugs, my coil packs, blah, 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 you know, some of the basics that I can, you know, handle, because those are easy, you know, and this is a very easy car to work on too. I don't know if I mentioned that at all in this video, but it's such an easy car to work on that if I really wanted to learn how to do some of those things that I'm, you know, incapable of doing now, I could. So, and the best thing is, guys, ready? So again, not for everybody, if everyone, you know, has, you know, different setups, but got a relatively noisy exhaust, as you guys can hear in the back. If I don't want to hear it anymore, comfort, put in drive, closes that valve, suspension gets a little softer. It's still firm, but it gets a little softer, and it's just, it's an easy ride. I can't even hear the exhaust. Man, guys, it's one of the things, I don't know how to sell this car. I don't know how to part ways with it. I want to try something new, but I kind of don't at the same time. I mean, you really can't go wrong with this platform. So I think I'm going to keep this car for a lot longer. We'll see. I don't know. Time will tell. But anyway, I've been chatting a lot. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it covers some of the things that some, you know, of you guys were worried about and concerned about. But I'll tell you, put those, you know, fears to rest. This is really, really an awesome platform. It's a great car. You know, it's decent on gas. It does drink gas. I will say that's the one thing it does that I'm not super happy with. But you know, aside from that, yeah, whatever. What miles per gallon? Not many of these cars get good gas anyway. And I think some of it is just because of the crackle too, and I enjoy doing that from time to time. So, but anyway, I'm done talking. Thank you guys again for watching, and stay tuned for some more videos to come. Peace and love.